I don't.
Okay.
No.
I do Facebook, and I posted one of my reels on there, and this guy said I can't even listen to this for more than a few seconds. That voice of hers is just too annoying.
Oh.
Chris says stay out of the comments, but that's really messed up.
That's
is
pretty
my
harsh.
voice that bad?
No, I think you sound great.
And I thought maybe this guy just doesn't like women. Because
I just think that what's happening there, right? So someone is expressing the way that they're feeling, right?
he's
And
feeling
so-
annoyed, and it's my voice that makes him annoyed.
He is feeling really bad about a lot of different stuff that's not related to your voice. And he's been given a format where he can express his annoyance with other things. And when something triggers him, he can just let it rip with no consequences. So that's what it is. It's not your voice. It's whatever else the guy's got going on, right? Because how many times, I'm sure you have heard someone's voice and gone like, that's annoying, but it was like a really, really particularly crazy, annoying voice for you to actually take note. And then for you to actually go and make a comment on it in a public forum, it would have to be an extremely annoying voice, right? Or
No, I would never.
Or you would have to be so wigged out and have so much going on, your whole life's collapsing, that you just have to let it out. And so that's all that it is. It's people expressing themselves, which is fine.
I just think that people on the internet, like in any random sample of 100 people, there's going to be 3 assholes in there who no matter what you do, what you say, are going to find something to be critical about.
Yeah, but a few of my friends jumped all over him and said some pretty nice stuff. So I love you, friends.
Yeah, you guys' fans are pretty vicious. They jump in there and they got your back.
Yeah,
it's all
our
good.
fans got her back, and it's nice to have fans. It's nice to be loved and friends more so. I feel like I'm not, like somebody introduced me, when we went to that Gracie thing, what was it, the Black Belt
Exchange.
So the Gracies down the street in Torrance have their Black Belt exchange, and we showed up, and this one guy came up to me and told me he was one of my fans.
Hell
and I was like, I have fans. I didn't even need to win the world championship.
I know. Just being yourself. But I do appreciate all the comments and stuff that people put on the online stuff.
Have you gotten any emails yet?
We have.
Yeah, guys.
And we were going to do some.
Emails.
Yeah.
Podcast at combatbase.com.
Yeah.
Whether you like us or hate us, please comment.
Let it rip.
Let it rip.
Talk shit about my voice.
So we actually wanted to hit some of these questions. I have a couple questions that I got online and through the email.
That segue? I didn't even know.
Dude, nailed it.
We're so good.
And let's hit them up, because I think it is important that people do have a way to express themselves.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that you feel targeted by the comments, but I think it is good that people have a place where they can
let the arrows fly.
Yeah, let it rip.
Her voice is just too annoying. I mean, I'm sorry. I still have a little bit of low self-esteem, so I'm like thinking, I'm listening to it, I'm like, how can I change my voice a little bit? And I even asked my friend, I'm like, can you listen to this? And she's like, well, there is this tone that you get, because he's always telling me he doesn't like my tone of voice, right? So I'm trying to get a neutral party, and I really put a lot of thought into this. It's not like I was just like, oh, that guy's having a bad day. I was like, no, because I want to improve.
I saw I don't
want to be so annoying.
There's a YouTube comment that was like, these people are just yelling the whole time,
Yes,
and then I
too.
responded like,
because we can't hear.
and then you like followed up and responded like, I'm sorry. I was like, don't worry about it. I think I said something like, I put a bunch of like megaphones, and I was like, thanks for the support.
Thanks for listening anyways.
Yeah. No, so we did get a couple questions.
Sick.
Which are good. So let's answer these questions for these guys. All right, so the first one is for both you guys, and then the second one's just for you.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. We kind of already answered it, but we could hit it up again, reiterate. Mr. and Mrs. Haueter. My name's John Benjamin. I'm a 34-year-old purple belt hobbyist and local SoCal competitor. I've watched all episodes and love the show. Please keep making content. We love it. Now, I do have a couple questions I'd love to hear you guys sound off on. This guy seems rad.
Yeah, come train.
So he said, what are your thoughts on this new open mat culture? Allowing an open mat and inviting any and all local grapplers to come train together. This has pros and cons. Some of the pros might be exposed to many styles, etc. Cons are that you could get hurt rolling with randoms. People can poach students.
Yep.
Has happened.
And personally, I realized guys who grapple, even at other rival academies, are usually good dudes, and guys that have a lot in common, that I have a lot in common with, as they fall, as their fellow students of the game. So that's one question that he has, and then the second question is, during a normal jiu-jitsu class, is it okay for a lower belt to ask a higher belt to roll, or is this disrespect?
I'm definitely prepared to answer them both.
Yeah, and
Okay.
like anybody who knows us and knows how we roll, we basically just have open mat here. It's just open mat.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we're
it's invite only.
yeah, it's invite only open mat, but it's like, it used to not be. It used to be randoms, all kinds of randoms were here, but it's like we have kids now. We want to kind of make our space a little more protected. Grandma lives here with us.
Yeah.
We've got a teenage daughter and a little boy. So our members, and they can invite their guests, or we invite other guests sometimes to come down and train. And sometimes people join up with our combat-based club, which is separate from the rolling, because the rolling is more just like friendly rolling, and it's open mat in terms of like you've invited your friends from, they train at different academies. And I understand like the part about it could not be safe because you don't know how another person might train, but we've adopted the philosophy of not trying to win, but trying to walk away uninjured. And I think that's a good mentality to have going into an open mat.
Yeah.
What do you
So
say?
the history of open mats, and I'm not saying that I'm the one who started them, but I was one of the ones who began to push the Machados to have an open mat. Because in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu culture was very tribal. And when I was coming up in the lower ranks, if you wanted to train with people from other schools, you had to do that very secretive in garages. If your instructor found out you were teaching or training something from other schools, they didn't want that other school to learn the style or whatever new move it was, because this is pre-internet with jiu-jitsu. The internet not only has changed jiu-jitsu, it's changed everything. So if you think of the martial arts, a culture is basically a pyramid. It's a hierarchy. There's somebody at the top, the very top, usually an old guy who's already passed away, whom we bow to. Then the instructor, we all bow to that, and it works its way up a pyramid. It's a style and a model of
MLM?
running that is different from, say, wrestling, which is your coach isn't worshipped in wrestling the way the martial arts coach is. It's a whole other culture. And in high school wrestling, we would go practice sometimes with our rival schools because the coaches knew each other. We would go meet. We would wrestle with guys that we knew literally in 3 days we would wrestle against. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu culture was not like that at all. The kickboxing, the boxing culture was its own thing, and I've always, because of my threes things, I always like bringing in parts of other cultures into it, and I was one of the ones that pushed for open mats. Americans did. And as soon as I had a black belt in power, I would have open mats. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I could also see how if you're a school owner and you're having an open mat the same day the school has its regular class or roll, and all of a sudden your upper belts are going to roll with the upper belts from this rival school, it doesn't help your school. And then that person having an open mat can use it as a way to attract more students. I get the politics of it because jiu-jitsu is a private industry, whereas wrestling is a public industry. The wrestling coach isn't getting his paycheck from recruiting more wrestlers.
Right.
And that's kind of like there's always, because of the structure of how each combat sport operates, dictates whether you're going to have a more open source model or a more closed protective. And like everything, it's a spectrum. And I think some amount of training with your rival is a wonderful thing, especially if my goal is to enhance my jiu-jitsu the best it can possibly be. And I am absolutely sure that I also helped inspire Henner and Huron to have that black belt exchange. So
Train
kind of
with everyone. Chris would always say stuff like that, though.
train
like,
with
train
everyone.
with everyone.
And people
don't
ask
be a
me,
dodger.
they always ask me, hey, coach, I just wanted to let you know that this guy from this other school asked why I go. I'm like, yes, please go. Please let me know if there's anything there. I'll join you.
Yeah.
Because I fully believe that the martial art is more important than the artist. As a Dan Inosanto Jeet Kune Do influenced guy, which comes from back the olden days where martial arts was super tribal, where if you train Wing Chun Kung Fu with one instructor, there was no switching instructors. There was no switching styles. It was very much a fascist model. And the American wrestling model was very much a socialist model. The American boxing gym was very much a libertarian model. And I think each of those models has a fatal flaw and also a benefit.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember back when we were at the Machado Academy, we had a Sunday open mat. It wasn't open to everyone, but it was like John Jack's people would come down. And then I remember for some reason they said they couldn't come anymore.
Yep.
That's where I was training with Felicia.
They closed it.
They closed it because we were having what we considered like a lightweights roll. So a lot of the lighter guys and ladies would come down and train at the Machado Academy, and they told us we couldn't do it anymore. It was weird.
Yeah, it's almost like everything else that we talked about in general. Like
It's
if you let it be a complete free for all, that's no good.
Right.
So,
If you overly control
it, that's no good either. It's like you need some sort of open format that's like being controlled and monitored in some kind of way.
The balance, the
Yeah.
middle way.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and then about asking higher belts
belt.
to roll. So when I came up through the belts, Chris would always say that we just don't ask higher belts to roll. It's not something that we're allowed to do. However,
You're not
where
supposed to.
I'm
It's
at,
not
I
not
don't
allowed,
mind.
but, yeah.
But I mean, I never did when I was a colored belt. I never asked
Well,
a black belt to roll.
let's
I
ask
never did.
why first.
Because you
why
told
is
me.
that rule there?
Why is
I'll
it?
answer. I'll answer.
Yeah, Tobin.
I definitely know
Tobin,
why
I
it's
call
there.
on you.
I think that I know why. I think that the people at the top of the hierarchy, being the black belts on the mat, they don't want to be exposed by a lower belt because they want to maintain their position in the hierarchy. So
either losing or injury.
to either
Or
losing
ego.
or injury
Or ego. Yep.
So I think it behooves them to keep control over who they're training with and when.
I think
So that's why the rule's there.
that's
and-
the less healthy reason why the rules.
What's
are
the
there.
healthy reason?
There is a healthy one
What
as
is
well.
it?
So when you're the
Respect?
highest
Respect.
belt, you're a target. And I distinctly remember being a phenom purple belt, a brown belt, so excited when some Brazilian guy had just come off the plane. He's a black belt. He's plus or minus a weight class. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to come at that guy with my A game. Whether he's ready or not, he is who I get to see how I do against my peers. And when you're a black belt who's a target, it's kind of annoying having purple belts giving you fucking their A game all the time. So if you're a humble black belt, you will you won't dodge them, but you'll choose it out instead of being challenged by a purple belt.
Right.
Now I'm a wimp if I don't accept it, so I got to go, and suddenly I got to go from 0 to 100 in A game, and I'm now 44, and I understand why we have that as a general rule.
That's a more. I'm saying the same thing, but that's a more kind perspective.
Mine's
like making it sound like the guy's an asshole trying to like control everything at the top, but that's like the practicality.
That's the
behind it. And that's what
practical.
I'm saying the same thing.
But then the other problem it does have is it allows such a black belt to be able to dodge and pick and choose who they roll with. And part of the beauty of what we do is we learn the wisdom of, just like in the street, you can't choose who you fight. Just like when you compete, you don't pick where you are in the bracket.
Yeah.
Should you be able to have that much control over your academy part?
I have a little caveat from that though. Like, okay, so now I am who I am. You all know. Am I allowed to join the Dodgers now that like I know that my hip is bad and maybe I just rolled with 3 people and then this eager purple belt comes up and I'm like, my hip's already spent. Do I do it just because I got to get pushed and I got to maintain my humility? Or is it okay for me to say, you know what, let's roll next
This
time?
is what I say. And now that I'm 59,
I think it's okay that I do.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
now that I'm 59, I have no problem saying no.
Let's roll next time.
But 15 years ago, 20 years ago, one of the things I did was I committed, actually 25, 30 years ago, I committed that I would never be a Dodger. That if somebody, plus or minus belt, plus or minus weight class, challenged me, wanted to roll, I'm going to roll. Like I made a rule of that. And when I would go teach, I would roll with everybody after I teach. Everybody. Then as I aged, I changed it to where I'll only roll with the upper belts. Then I changed
now you roll with no
to
one.
where I'll only roll with the host.
Yeah.
Then I was really glad I got popular and people wanted to take pictures because it gave me an excuse to
not
dodge the rolling.
And not only, it also there's another part. Like you have to usually get from there onto a plane. And if you roll
That's
with
right.
everyone after,
And I'm
he doesn't
stinky
get
mess.
to take a shower.
It's gross.
Yeah.
And then going to be face burned all over. His body's going to be sore and he's got to go sit on a plane all gross and dirty.
And then
Better now you don't have to roll.
I remember maybe it was 10 or so years ago. I was either in Asia or Europe, and light heavyweight purple belt, ripped 8-pack. So excited, and I said, "Coach, but can we roll after this?" And I said, "You know what? I feel like a wimp that I'm going to say no, but go get a few more injuries, get one more belt, and then I promise wherever we run across each other again, I will roll. Because right now, you're a young, fit, but purple belt who has yet to have an injury.
Yeah.
And I'm an older, aging, potentially always injured black belt. So
Yeah.
I dodge. And I remember consciously thinking, wow, I'm dodging. Now I get it. I get why older guys dodge. Why young people dodge, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Roll with your peers.
Yeah, and I guess like to the point of the guy's question, as far as whether it's disrespect or not, I think what's important to realize with all this is that wherever you go and train, just sit back and look at the customs of whatever's happening where you are.
When in Rome, do as the Romans.
And just follow along. It's not that big of a deal. And, don't try to enforce your ethics on the group that you're with. Just go along with.
And I think how you ask. Are you challenging, or are you asking for hey, can we have a light roll? Can you show me how you do the so-and-so move? I mean, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
That's also sometimes a tool people do to make
you
it
in
a
there.
roll.
Yeah.
Which I understand because I've done that in the past. When I know there's some guy who's kind of dodging me, it's like I'm going to say, hey, why don't we just drill a bit? Or, hey, show me that choke so I can see, because really what I want to do is roll.
Yeah.
Well, it's also certain customs like bowing and lining up and shaking everyone's hand and coming out of the dressing room with your belt tied. None of that was a thing for like 15 years of my training.
Nope. Wasn't a thing at all.
It wasn't a thing. So like going to academies and looking, okay, everybody's doing this, so I got to do that. Like that's trying to be respectful because it's not my academy.
Well, and another perspective on this too is in judo. The general deal is that you can ask anybody of higher rank to practice. And as a matter of fact, it's actually kind of rude if you don't ask a higher rank to practice. Like the general ethic is like, look, there's black belts here. Let's make sure that they get enough practice.
Don't waste that knowledge.
Yeah, don't waste the knowledge and don't waste their time. Because they came here to practice or to teach or whatever. But then also, like if you ask them to roll and they say no, like there's no complaints.
You
know?
don't get offended.
No, you don't get offended. You just, okay, no problem.
See, I'm a
for
doubt.
whatever reason.
I think
and then,
both things are true at the same time.
And so like, but you have to go ask to make sure that they're getting enough practice in. So it's a different perspective.
It's more like, have you gotten enough yet? Would you like to use my body?
Basically, yeah. And so that's a different perspective on it. But at the end of the day, I think it's just important to understand you're going to do what everybody else is doing in the room. And then if you have your own school, think deeply about all this and decide what you want. I think that's probably what the answer is, right?
Yeah.
Environment is stronger than will.
Yeah. Okay. That guy was cool. Thanks for the questions. Those are great.
Super cool.
So
Thanks for the support.
Here's a woman's question.
Okay.
So Professor Melissa,
Wow.
I'm a 30-year-old female blue belt from the UK. I absolutely love training, but I feel a little creeped out by my training partners at times. There's nothing explicit to note, but they can be a little too touchy-feely after training.
Ooh.
And the way they look at me sometimes makes me uncomfortable. How can I set healthy boundaries with my male training partners? Thanks so much for your time. I love the podcast.
Oh, thanks for your support. Well, as you've heard, I'm a big believer in RBF, but that might not be what you want to do, right? It might not, maybe you want to be healthier than me. And I love all the guys, or maybe, I also have him, right? I have Chris. So all the guys that we hang out and whatever, and I never feel uncomfortable, but we have a real family kind of environment, and most everybody is married. Wouldn't you say? Most everybody here is married.
Yeah, it's a pretty mature group.
It's a mature
feel like.
group. Yeah.
And,
so
it's all like people that have been
It's not
training for a
swingers
while.
jiu-jitsu.
no.
Definitely not.
So my first thought is
Swing jitsu?
maybe
Almost sounds kind of cool.
all right.
Kidding.
My thought is maybe though this particular training environment might not be the best fit. And with the explosion of jiu-jitsu, maybe there is a more mature group somewhere that won't cause this kind of discomfort. Yeah, because I mean, for me, if I could try to put myself in that place as a 30-year-old blue belt, which was a long time ago, I don't think that I would be okay with that.
Men are pigs.
Yeah. I really don't feel that, I don't feel that I could not say something.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to say something or to leave, like one of those two things, because I really do feel that every jiu-jitsu group has its own flavor. And that, like, I don't know how it is where you live, but here in California, I could throw a rock and hit 5 schools. And when people ask me about jiu-jitsu and where they should train or where they should take their kids, I say, try them all. Try them all and then make a decision. Don't just walk into the first one and commit to that, because you're going to get a different feel. Every school has a different approach to teaching kids, a different approach to women's jiu-jitsu, a different approach to where they lie in the street sport art.
And I will even say, if they have the exact same curriculum, you could have 2 schools that have the same curriculum, and one of them is more like the school that has a different curriculum than it is like the one that has the exact same, because people and personalities make up a school. Not the moves and curriculum.
I can see that.
Anymore.
And that is really important. I think that back in the day, I probably didn't think about it as much, and I just wanted bodies to roll with. But at this phase in my career, I really love having a supportive community where everybody respects where my body's at, and doesn't look at me as some kind of a object for physical desire because they have theirs at home or whatever. I don't know, but something I did last week was I did a mentorship call with a woman. So if anyone is interested in doing a mentorship call with me, you can hit me up at info@combatbase.com, and I'm happy to set up a call, set some time aside to answer questions from a female perspective and provide guidance and my experience and everything that I've gone through all these years, through the decades of my life, regarding, jiu-jitsu. And and growth and longevity. Because not only like one of the things we were talking about earlier too was like having those role models. Well, when I was pregnant, I didn't have anybody that I knew who had ever been pregnant and done jujitsu
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I navigated that in particular ways and have different thoughts about it. But, you know, things like that or situations, you know, where this particular guy that made me feel uncomfortable, the only time when that's happened to me, I never trained with him again. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the way that I set the boundary because that is just, it's just not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just no room for it. This
feel
is
like-
way too intimate.
I feel like that's such a good answer because I feel like sometimes people think boundary setting needs to be this like ego driven, like, oh, I'm going to let you know. But I actually don't think that that's true. I think boundary setting sometimes can be that where it's like, no, the boundary is that I just don't show up anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything.
And
So if I don't like what's going on, my boundary is that, oh, I'm just not, I remove myself. That's like the boundary.
yeah, and I think
And,
every
I think that's a
situation
great answer.
is somewhat unique, even if they sound the same when you read what the paragraph was, but describing it when you're actually there, it's unique.
Yeah.
The how direct the hitting on or missing was, how your tact is in addressing it, like it's such a nuanced thing that we can't know exactly what this blue belt is experiencing. And maybe it's one of those things where a tactful little, hey, I know we roll all the time and stuff, but when we're off the mat, can you maybe be a little more that
Maybe
person?
don't touch me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't say it in any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you know what? You're not my boyfriend. You can't touch me like that.
Right.
Like that, there's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
very direct. You cannot touch me like that.
Yeah.
They're looking at me and making me feel uncomfortable. You know, I'm going to leave now.
I
This
saw,
isn't okay.
I know. I saw there was like a really famous jiu-jitsu gal that got her black belt a while back. And it was like a video of her getting her black belt. And then the coach like gave her the black belt and then tied up the brown belt and like swatted her on the butt with it after. And I was just like, oh, that is a bad look, you know? And this stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, I've been known to hit some people on the butt with a belt.
But it was like but not like, do you know what I'm saying? Like
I
it
might
had
be a
this
little
like,
inappropriate myself sometimes, but
It was the way
but
it
if
was
it's
done.
in
If
jest,
everybody
you know?
gets hit in the butt with the belt, and
that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
they spank. That's the spanking school.
Yeah.
Don't go to that school if you don't want to get spanked.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to another school that I trained at for a couple of years, which is Golden State Jiu-Jitsu in
Oh, yeah?
Torrance. The guys
Yeah.
over there, Dane, Molina, and their environment that they had there
Yeah.
before COVID. I was going over there a couple times a week and training, getting some really good rolls in. A nice lightweight crew. Everybody, they keep it safe. They keep
Yeah.
it mellow. Totally good vibe.
They're cops now, right?
I don't really know where they're at right now. I just know that before COVID, I was going over there and I always felt well respected.
Yeah.
It's just really important to feel like, you know, you walk into a gym and you don't have people like, who is this chick? Or where did she come from? Where did she get her black belt? All these kinds of things that I've been asked at other gyms where I just felt like, ew, gross. Like, why are they so into my resume, like interrogating me basically? If I'm
Yeah.
coming in, I'd rather just be respected. I'm just here to train too, kind of like judo. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just here to get some rolls, guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be interrogated. And you know, if you're interested in learning something, I'm happy to help out too. But I remember going to another gym and walking in, and somebody go, "Where did you get your black belt?" And I'm like, "In my garage."
What is that? Mr. Miyagi says like Walmart, $14.99.
The OTM store.
Yeah.
Or they said to me, I think, who did you get your black belt from? And I'm like, my husband. My husband in my garage. Like, you know, it was like
Yeah.
like this thing like, ooh,
Yeah,
are
that's
you good
weird.
enough to be here?
Golden State's great. One of my best
And you
jiu-jitsu
stomp that
buds
chick out.
earned his black belt over there not too long ago. Paul Kim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very, very nice
Nice.
guy. Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, I think like that kind of would crack open a whole other can of worms, but the whole topic of belts, right? And that's like something that, like we've talked about on this before, there's a good and a bad thing about having a distinguishing mark for your rank.
Yeah. We
And
should
it-
have a solo.
It inherently creates hierarchy and inherently creates political conflict, whereas boxing, wrestling, you don't have that.
We should
That's
have
one of the good things about.
a solo episode where we talk about the belting system.
Yeah, we could, and it's
Topical.
come up.
on the plant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or we could put him in a pile on the table. But people have asked us, like, how do we
Rank?
rank people? Yeah. What are like our philosophies on that? And it really is kind of like an individual
Yeah,
thing.
that's
Yeah.
a long
It's a really
Long discussion.
answer. Yep,
It's
that's
a
not
lot.
Pound and subscribe!